Let's go right into the fight for four freedoms. First of all, I enjoyed the book. I had a chance to
Thank
read
you.
it as I went into the city day by day, little by little. I want you to tell my audience, for those who haven't read it, could you give them the elevator pitch about it, and then we'll unpack it from there.
Okay, well, let's start with the kinds of things that actually pissed me off. That whenever I get pissed off is when I generally start writing. Although I do it with a smile on my face. I mean, I don't get pessimistic. Well, what it was is that first I'll mention that my father was a World War II veteran, and my family was solidly pro Roosevelt.
Hmm.
And so when I grew up, even as I moved further and further left and became rather critical of liberalism in favor of social democracy and progressivism, it was the case that I found the growing, the increasing number of attacks by the right on Franklin Roosevelt at the same time that the right was trying to lay claim to the whole greatest generation phenomenon.
Mm,
I found it very disturbing.
yeah.
And then I also found disturbing the fact that folks on the left, in a knee-jerk like way, were also abandoning, in some ways, the Roosevelt tradition, but even more significantly, that they tended to be critical of the greatest generation phenomena. That is, the celebration of this generation of the 1930s and 40s. They thought it was all just some. In fact, there were those who actually thought it was a plot
Hmm.
to make us all more eager to go to war again,
Right.
or a plot basically to dampen our radical spirits, or a plot to overlook the prevalent racism of the day or the anti-Semitism. I really was disturbed by the complete lack of critical thinking about all of those things that were accomplished in the 1930s and during World War II of a truly progressive nature. And I came to see the entire experience of the New Deal and then the fight against fascism in World War II as, in many ways, sort of embodied in Roosevelt's 1941 speech,
Hmm.
to the State of the Union speech, essentially, in which he was calling on Americans, in essence, to prepare for war. He was calling on Americans to become the arsenal of democracy. I mean, this was in January 41. We would not enter the war in a grand, in an official military capacity until December, when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor. But if you think about what the Four Freedom speech was, where he lays out this argument that Americans needed to envision a world marked by freedom of speech and expression,
Hmm.
freedom of worship,
Yep.
freedom from want. I mean, freedom from want, think about
Right.
that, and freedom from fear. This was the vision he was offering. And what really impressed me about it is it was a vision that in many ways was driven by the accomplishments of the 1930s struggles, both the official New Deal and the labor and civil rights and women's struggles of the 30s,
Hmm.
to transform America in a more democratic fashion. And also, I came to see this speech, The Fight for the Four Freedoms, as one more expression of Americans' ideals, as
Mm.
opposed to simply something that we might be cynical about. Well, they didn't live up to it, or think about the tragedies and the evils that still occurred. And I don't deny those. I think it's the case that the Roosevelt administration did not, to my mind, adequately fight racism, did not, to my
Hmm.
mind, adequately demand an open door for Jewish refugees from
Right.
Nazi Germany,
Yeah.
and also, segregated the American military during World War II, and also, interned Japanese Americans. Those are sins and those are tragedies, and those should never be forgotten. But on the other hand, let's not forget that those who suffered the most from American racism and anti-Semitism and so on were also the ones who came out the strongest in the war effort. Most people were forgetting this.
Hmm.
I mean, American Jews served out of proportion to their numbers in the U.S. population. Mexican Americans served well out of proportion to their numbers in the U.S. population. A million African Americans served, and even more might well have served, but there was a quota on the numbers allowed into the military. And in Japanese Americans' cases, 22,500 young men actually served in the most decorated military unit of World War II, the
Hmm.
442nd, in the European theater, and others served in military intelligence. Anyhow, to come back to my point about the Four Freedoms, is I thought we were completely missing the boat on FDR and the Greatest Generation. And as I say, and I say in my talks usually, is that, we often say, well, haven't we made enough of the Greatest Generation? No, I actually think we never made enough of the Greatest Generation, because what we failed to appreciate is that they were the most progressive generation in American history in all their diversity, decidedly the most progressive. If you consider what they enabled and pushed Roosevelt to pursue, not only the regulation of big business by way of the Securities and Exchange Commission and a whole host of other agencies. They helped us recover from the Great Depression by way of the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Works Progress Administration. They threw their labors into these endeavors. I'm going on and on, aren't I? But if you want me to stop, I can stop.
I'm actually. But that's what professors do. That's what professors do. I have no problem with you going on. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that, and I will indeed go on. But even as they were doing all of that, it's the case that millions of Americans, men and women, white and black and brown, we could say, they organized labor unions all across the country. And the Roosevelt administration, along with Senator Wagner of New York and other Democratic senators, enacted the National Labor Relations Act in order to bolster labor union organizing. I mean, this was not only this, simply the AFL, which was the more conservative federation, but the new Congress of Industrial Organizations, which, by the way, insisted on desegregating industry and insisted on opening its ranks to women and to ethnic and racial minorities. I mean, this was an extraordinary generation.